AITA for not supporting my parents after they chose my abusive ex over me? I grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone else. My parents, although strict, always had the best intentions. I was their only child, and they'd always told me I was their pride and joy. As a kid, I never questioned anything, my family, their rules, or even the things they'd want me to do. I took comfort in knowing that they always had my back, no matter what. When I met Alex, ex-30M, I thought I had found someone who would be the perfect match for me. He was charming, funny, and made me feel like I was the only person in the room. We met at a mutual friend's party, and the chemistry was instant. At first, everything seemed perfect. My parents liked him too. He'd come over for family dinners, and we'd spend hours chatting, laughing, and bonding over the simplest things. It was easy, it was comfortable, and it felt like this relationship would just fall into place. At the time, I had just graduated from college, and Alex was already working in his career, so he was a little older than me. He was assertive, confident, and seemed to have everything figured out. He quickly took on the role of protector, and I loved the attention. He'd often tell me how lucky I was to have him and how much he admired my ambition, though looking back, it was a little too much. Too many compliments, too much praise. At the time, I didn't see it that way, though. I was just happy to feel seen and loved. Our relationship moved quickly. We traveled together, spent holidays together, and within 6 months, I was introducing him to my parents as the one. They were thrilled and welcomed him with open arms, as they always do with my boyfriends. But somewhere along the way, something started to shift. At first, it was small things, comments about my friends, or how I spent my weekends. Then he began telling me how I should dress, or who I should spend my time with. I remember him suggesting that I didn't need to hang out with my best friend, Kayla, anymore because she wasn't good for me and didn't care about my happiness. I brushed it off, thinking it was just his way of caring. But slowly, over the next few months, his controlling behavior started to get worse. I remember the first time he raised his voice at me. We were at a restaurant, and I had laughed a little too loudly at something my friend had said. Alex's face changed in an instant, and he leaned in, telling me in a cold whisper that I embarrassed him and needed to be more mindful of how I behaved in public. I felt humiliated, but I didn't know how to respond. I made excuses for him, telling myself it was a one-off incident. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. This is when I started to feel like I was losing myself. The worst part was, he was so good at making me believe it was all my fault. He'd twist everything I said or did, turning it into something that made me feel inadequate. If I got upset, he'd say, "Why are you always overreacting? You know I only want what's best for you." And so, the cycle continued. Looking back, it's scary how gradual the change was, how easily I let go of pieces of myself without even realizing it. The person I was when I met Alex wasn't the person I was even a year later. I used to be confident, outspoken, and full of energy. But slowly, that version of me faded into someone quieter, more agreeable, more careful not to cause a scene. Alex was a master of subtle control. He didn't scream or break things or leave bruises. He didn't have to. Instead, he used guilt, shame, and gaslighting like surgical instruments. If I wanted to go out with my friends, he'd make passive-aggressive comments like, "I guess some people don't value their relationships as much as others." If I wanted to visit my parents without him, he'd sigh and say, "You spend more time with them than you do with me. I guess I'm not a priority anymore." I started to apologize for things I wasn't even sure I'd done wrong. I stopped reaching out to my friends as much. I stopped talking to Kayla altogether after she told me, bluntly, something's off about him. I defended him at the time, convinced she just didn't understand. In reality, she saw what I refused to admit. I was being emotionally abused. One of the most painful parts of this entire ordeal was how my parents responded, or didn't. At first, I thought they'd notice the shift in me. I thought maybe my mom would pull me aside and ask if I was okay. But they didn't. In fact, they seemed to get closer to Alex the more distant I became. They'd invite him over for dinner, even when I wasn't home. My dad would chat with him about work and politics. My mom would ask his opinion on family matters as though he was already part of the family. I started to feel like an outsider in my own home. One night, about 2 years into the relationship, I went over to my parents' house alone. I hadn't been there without Alex in months. It felt weird, like I was sneaking behind someone's back just to see my own family. I tried to bring up some of the issues I was having. Carefully, not accusingly. I said something like, "Lately, I feel like Alex and I are having more conflicts. I don't always feel heard." My mom looked at me, puzzled. "You two are always so perfect together. I mean, he's always telling us how much he loves you. Maybe you're just overthinking things, sweetie." That stung. I tried to explain more, mentioned a few situations that had made me uncomfortable, how he monitored who I texted, how he made me feel like I needed to ask permission before doing simple things. My dad laughed it off. "Sounds like he just cares about you. A little jealousy never hurt anyone. It means he's into you. Guys just express that differently sometimes." That was the moment I realized something devastating. They weren't going to believe me. Not only did they not see the red flags, they refused to see them. They had already painted Alex as the ideal man for their daughter, and anything I said to the contrary didn't fit the narrative. It was easier for them to believe I was being sensitive than to believe that they had welcomed someone dangerous into the family. It wasn't just my parents. Extended family members, my aunts, cousins, even my grandmother started referring to Alex as if he were already my husband. "When are you two getting married?" They'd ask at every gathering. "He's such a catch." The pressure to stay in the relationship increased with every passing month. I felt like the more I struggled, the more everyone tightened their grip around me, pulling me further into a version of my life I didn't want. And then, the emotional abuse escalated. Alex started controlling my finances. At first, it was subtle, suggesting we open a joint bank account to make things easier. Then came comments like, "Do you really need to spend money on that? That's kind of irresponsible, don't you think?" When I pushed back, he'd remind me that he was just trying to help me build a better future. He even went through my phone once while I was asleep. I woke up to find him scrolling through my texts. When I confronted him, he didn't apologize. He said, "If you've got nothing to hide, then what's the problem?" I felt sick. It all came to a head one night when I got a call from Kayla. I hadn't spoken to her in nearly a year, but she reached out after seeing a photo of me online, a family picture where I looked, as she put it, like a ghost. She said she barely recognized me and wanted to check in. I burst into tears. I told her everything. Every manipulative tactic, every moment of self-doubt, every time I tried to leave, but didn't know how. Kayla didn't try to fix it. She just listened. And for the first time in years, I felt like someone actually saw me. That conversation gave me the strength I needed. The next day, I told Alex I was done. I wasn't calm. I wasn't composed. I cried. I yelled. I shook. But I told him I was leaving, and I meant it. He tried everything, begging, guilt-tripping, even threatening to hurt himself. But I had finally hit my limit. I packed my bags and left. I stayed with Kayla for a while. She helped me get a new phone, close our joint accounts, and even go to therapy. For the first time in years, I was beginning to feel like me again. But that's not where the story ends. Because after everything I had gone through, the gaslighting, the control, the emotional trauma, I expected my parents to support me. They didn't. When I told my parents what had happened, they were cold. My mom's face went blank. My dad didn't even look at me. "You're really going to throw away a good man because of a few arguments?" my dad asked. "Relationships aren't supposed to be easy, you know." I was stunned. I told them I had been emotionally abused, that he manipulated me and made me feel like I was losing my mind. My mom shook her head and said, "That doesn't sound like Alex. Are you sure you're not just exaggerating things again?" Exaggerating. That word broke something in me. I couldn't believe that after everything, after opening up to them, being vulnerable, they still chose him. It got worse. They stayed in contact with him, invited him over, reposted his photos on social media. My mom even commented, "Love you," on one of his posts just 2 weeks after I left him. When I confronted her, she said, "Just because you broke up doesn't mean we have to hate him. He was a part of our lives too." I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just a lack of support. It was betrayal. My parents chose the man who emotionally abused me over their own daughter. The weeks following my breakup with Alex were some of the most emotionally complex of my life. I was grieving a relationship that had drained me for years, trying to heal from psychological wounds I didn't even realize I had. I thought walking away would bring peace, but instead, it brought a quiet, suffocating kind of grief. What no one tells you about leaving an abusive relationship is that freedom doesn't feel like celebration. It feels like withdrawal, like detoxing from poison. Your body remembers the fear, even when the threat is gone. But the thing that haunted me the most wasn't Alex. It was my parents. I couldn't make sense of it. I kept replaying every conversation I'd had with them since I left him. My father's disapproval, my mother's emotional distance, their casual, dismissive reactions to the trauma I had laid bare in front of them. It was like my pain was inconvenient to them, something to be downplayed, minimized, rebranded as relationship drama rather than abuse. I wanted to scream. I wanted them to hold me the way they used to when I was little and skin my knee or came home crying because someone had been mean to me at school. I wanted my dad to clench his fists and say, "No one treats my daughter that way." I wanted my mom to cup my face in her hands and tell me how strong I was for leaving. But instead, I got silence. Or worse, loyalty to my abuser. About a month after the breakup, I received a message in the family group chat. Yes, the same one where I had shared photos of birthday parties and anniversaries, where my parents sent cringeworthy memes and forwarded chain messages about guardian angels and prayer warriors. It was a message from my aunt. Just a reminder. Family barbecue at our place this Saturday. Hope to see everyone there, Alex, too. I stared at my phone in disbelief. I hadn't spoken to my aunt since before the breakup. She knew. Everyone knew. I had told my parents everything. Either they hadn't passed it on to the rest of the family, or worse, they had, and no one cared. I texted my mom privately. "Why is Alex invited to the barbecue?" Her reply came instantly. "Because he's still family to us. You might be done with him, but we aren't." That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't just ignorance. This was choice. They had all chosen him, after everything I had told them. After I had opened myself up, raw and broken, and handed them the truth on a silver platter. They had looked at me, and said, "Not good enough." I started going to therapy weekly. My therapist was a quiet, thoughtful woman named Teresa who didn't flinch when I described the worst of it. The manipulation, the gaslighting, the way Alex would leave the house during a fight and then come back hours later like nothing had happened. How I'd sometimes cry in the bathroom just to get 5 minutes alone with my own thoughts. I also told her about my parents, about how they'd taken his side, how they were still inviting him into their lives like nothing had happened. Teresa listened quietly, then asked, "What would support have looked like to you?" I paused. It was a good question. A painful one. "Belief," I said. "I just wanted them to believe me." "And what did they give you instead?" "Doubt," I replied. "They gave me doubt and loyalty to someone who hurt me." That session ended with me sobbing on the little gray couch in her office, my whole body trembling, not from sadness, but rage. It's funny, because when I first left Alex, I thought I'd spend months grieving him. But I didn't. The moment I was free, I felt like I could breathe again. The grief wasn't for him. It was for my parents, for the loss of safety, for the brutal realization that the people who raised me, who always said family comes first, didn't mean me when they said it. In a last-ditch effort, I tried to have one more conversation with my mom. I invited her to coffee, just the two of us. She agreed, and for a moment I let myself hope. I thought maybe she'd soften. Maybe now, with some space between us, she'd finally understand how deeply this had hurt me. We sat at a quiet cafe. I didn't beat around the bush. "I need you to stop talking to Alex," I said. "I need you to respect that he emotionally abused me, and staying in contact with him is a betrayal." She looked surprised, not angry, not sad. Just confused. "I don't think it's that black and white, sweetheart. Just because things didn't work out between you two doesn't mean he's a monster. He's still a good person. He still cares about you." I blinked. A good person? He had made me doubt my own memory. Made me feel like I was going crazy. He'd taken control of my finances, isolated me from my friends, made me question every single decision I made. That's not a good person. That's abuse. I tried again. I'm not asking you to hate him. I'm asking you to support me, your daughter, the person who is in pain. My mom sighed and said something that would echo in my brain for months. Just because you feel hurt doesn't mean everyone else has to hate him. People are complicated, honey. You'll understand when you're older. I walked out of that cafe and blocked her number. The decision didn't come all at once. It wasn't a dramatic moment of clarity or some righteous, empowering montage. It was slow, agonizing, and filled with second-guessing. I stopped calling. I stopped answering texts. I muted the family group chat. I didn't go to the barbecue, or Thanksgiving, or my cousin's wedding. And at every missed event, I'd get messages like, "You're being dramatic. Don't punish the whole family for your breakup. He's moved on. Why can't you?" No one asked if I was okay. No one came to my defense. Not even the people who used to say I was like a daughter to them. Not even my father, who once told me he'd walk me down the aisle with pride. They had chosen their comfort over my truth. Even after everything, after the betrayal, after the dismissal, after the invalidation, I still felt guilty. I'd lie awake at night thinking, maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe I should just let it go. Maybe if I explain it differently, they'll understand. It took months in therapy to untangle that guilt, to understand that my need for safety and boundaries was not selfish. That I was not punishing anyone by protecting myself. That loyalty doesn't mean blind obedience, and that real love doesn't come with conditions like, only if you stay silent. With time, I started reclaiming little pieces of myself. I reconnected with Kayla. We laughed like old times, and I cried when she told me, "I never stopped being your friend. I was just waiting for you to find your way back." I went back to school for a certificate program I'd put off during my relationship with Alex. I cut my hair, got a tattoo, moved into a new apartment with big windows and no memories. I adopted a dog, Cooper, a sweet rescue mutt with anxious eyes and a big heart. He followed me around the house like a shadow, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. And slowly, ever so slowly, the quiet began to feel like peace instead of punishment. 6 months after I went no contact, I got an email from my father. Subject line, "Let's talk." It was short, polite, measured. "I know things have been difficult lately. We miss you. Your mom and I would really like to see you. Maybe we can talk things through, face to face. No pressure, just let us know if you're open to it." I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to scream. Now you want to talk? After everything? After choosing him over me? Another part of me wanted to cry. To fall into their arms and pretend none of this ever happened. But I wasn't the same person anymore. So I closed my laptop, made a cup of tea, and took Cooper for a walk. I didn't reply. I didn't respond to my dad's email. It wasn't an act of revenge. It wasn't about playing games. It was a boundary. A hard-earned, clear-as-glass boundary that I had bled emotionally to build. And yet, silence has a way of unsettling people who are used to you being available, used to you managing their comfort, their guilt, their narratives. My silence wasn't passive. It was a statement. And the longer it went on, the louder it seemed to ring in their ears. The emails kept coming. First once a week, then twice. Always polite. Always full of that vague, non-committal language that people use when they don't want to take responsibility, but still want access. "We're thinking of you. The house feels empty without you. You're always welcome." But welcome to what, exactly? Welcome to a family that denied my pain? Welcome to Sunday dinners where my abuser was invited, but my healing was inconvenient? No. I wasn't going back to that. Going no contact with your parents doesn't just affect you, it ripples. Suddenly, cousins, aunts, and old family friends were checking in. Some genuinely concerned. Others not so much. "You know your mom hasn't been herself lately. Your dad doesn't know how to fix this. It's been long enough, don't you think?" Every message made it clear. They missed the version of me who kept the peace. The good daughter. The one who smiled through her discomfort, swallowed her pain, and made things easier for everyone else. None of them asked me how I was actually doing. No one wanted to hear what really happened with Alex. They just wanted me to come back. Quietly. Neatly. Without making anyone look too hard at their own reflection. But I couldn't go back. Because the woman they wanted no longer existed. People often ask what happened to Alex. He moved on quickly, of course. People like him don't tend to sit alone with their thoughts for long. A few months after our breakup, he started dating someone new. Someone younger, bright-eyed, probably flattered by his confidence, just like I once was. I saw a photo of them together on his public Instagram, taken at a brunch spot my parents used to love. My mom liked the photo. That one broke me a little. But eventually, even that sting dulled. Because I realized something important. He didn't win. He didn't get to keep me small. He didn't get to carry my soul like a trophy. He only got a chapter. And the rest of the book was mine to write. I heard rumors through the grapevine. That he was doing great. That he got a promotion. That he was thinking about proposing to the new girlfriend. Let him. Let him live the curated life he needs to live to keep the mask in place. That part of my life, his part, is over. The first major holiday after I went no contact was Christmas. It used to be my favorite time of year. My mom made the same sugar cookies every December, and my dad put up an over-the-top light display that made the neighbors roll their eyes. But that year, I didn't even unpack my decorations. Kayla invited me to her family's house. Her mom made too much food, her brothers wore ugly sweaters, and her grandmother kept insisting I take home leftovers, even though I had said no 3 times already. It wasn't my family. It wasn't perfect, but it was safe. I cried in the car afterward. Not because I was sad, but because I realized with a painful kind of clarity that this was what holidays could feel like when no one was walking on eggshells. When love didn't come with strings attached or backhanded compliments or loyalty tests. And I knew right then I was building a new family. One meal, one boundary, one safe relationship at a time. For a while, I became the villain in my family's version of the story. She changed. She's cold now. She's too angry. She's letting therapy turn her against us. That last one made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was so telling. My healing wasn't a triumph to them. It was a threat. Because if I got better, it meant something had been wrong to begin with. And no one wanted to take the blame for that. But here's the thing. I didn't need them to rewrite the story. I just needed to stop living in theirs. I wrote a letter to my parents. I never sent it. I don't know if I ever will. But writing it helped. It went like this. Dear Mom and Dad, I didn't walk away because I wanted to hurt you. I walked away because staying was hurting me. I know you think I overreacted, that I gave up on family. But family doesn't mean enabling abuse. Family doesn't mean protecting an image at the expense of someone's truth. I needed you to stand by me. Instead, you stood by him. And that broke something I don't know how to fix. Maybe one day, we'll find a way back to each other. But it won't be by pretending nothing happened. If you ever want to rebuild, the first step is simple. Believe me, these days, life is quiet. I have a new apartment, with plants I haven't killed yet. I'm dating again, carefully, slowly, with more awareness than I ever had before. I've rebuilt my circle of friends. Some old, like Kayla. Some new, found in support groups and book clubs and long, tearful coffee shop conversations. I don't talk to my parents. Maybe I will one day. Maybe not. But I've learned that peace doesn't come from forgiveness alone. It comes from boundaries. From choosing yourself every day. From realizing that you don't owe access to anyone, even if they raised you, when they've proven they can't hold your pain with care. I'm not the daughter they remember. And honestly, that's the best thing I've ever been.